Wolfenstein Youngblood is a spin-off game in the long-running Wolfenstein franchise, this time following the adventures of BJ Blazkowicz's two daughters. It follows the overarching plot of the new games, but you don't really need any prior knowledge to go into this game as it's largely its own side story. It's also the first Wolfenstein game to introduce co-op, allowing you to team up with a friend, a random, or just play with the AI. And it changes up the flow of the game, adding more RPG elements and a semi-open world. This is a big change for the series, and unfortunately it's a change that just simply wasn't needed. Wolfenstein Youngblood is set about 20 years after the events of Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, where BJ has gone missing. His two twin daughters, Sophia and Jess, decide to hijack a helicopter and head to Paris in hopes of finding him. But unlike The New Colossus, the story of Youngblood takes a big backseat and is stripped down in almost every way. The game starts with a few cutscenes to set up the premise, but then you're pretty much just thrown into the action. There are a few other cutscenes throughout the rest of the game, but they're very short and frankly not that interesting. Most of what happens in these is just the characters saying what they need to do next. And they aren't even entertaining because there's no development in the plot. A majority of the game is spent going from one section of the world to the next, killing Nazis. There's no insane scenarios or giant set pieces like in The New Colossus. It's just simply moving from point A to point B. It also doesn't help that a lot of your journey is filled with backtracking through the same few areas, and most of these missions have you doing the same basic tasks. Break into a facility, kill the Nazis, get a code, enter it in some computer, leave the facility, and then repeat. Now, that's not to say the world is completely devoid of anything interesting, as the new level of verticality helps this semi-open world feel a bit more fleshed out. Speaking of that, I should mention that this game was a collaboration between Machine Games, the makers of the other Wolfenstein games, and Arcane Studios, the team behind the Dishonored series. And Arcane's presence is certainly felt, as there are lots of small hideouts and passageways that feel right out of Dishonored. And I think this lends itself well to a few mildly interesting exploration moments, but even that gets stale as, like I said earlier, you'll be backtracking and going through these same areas quite a bit, and it doesn't feel like the semi-open world adds anything that worthwhile to the experience. The game doesn't do a great job keeping you engaged either, as it all kind of felt like an endless quest to kill Nazis and get secret codes for something secretive because we gotta defeat the Nazis. But as I always say, a simple main plot can be perfectly fine if you can do something interesting with the world or characters. But the world is just decent, and unfortunately the two protagonists aren't good. Their only character trait seems to be that they're quirky. That's kinda it. There are a few moments where the game tries to give them depth, like when they're nervous to get their first Nazi kill, but then immediately after that they are perfectly trained Nazi exterminators that destroy everything that moves, so yeah, so much for character building. Instead, all of that is done during the gameplay with the super witty banter.
Fuck yeah, Jess, you're slaying it.
It certainly feels like they were written by someone who doesn't have siblings, as all of their dialogue is super generic and kinda cringy at times. As Dan Stapleton perfectly stated, they kinda sound like gender-swapped frat boys. All they do is insult each other, and then hype each other up, and then are just complete doofuses.
Zip it. Shit for brains. Make me. Barf bag.
And then there are these really awkward elevator scenes that attempt to make the characters seem more likable or down to earth. I don't know, but it really comes off as weird. But that doesn't stop the game from making you watch them 10 to 20 times because there are so many elevators in this game. The game is only about 7 hours long, but by the end, I genuinely did not want to get into another one of these things because it was so irritating to have to press E, wait for your teammate, watch the 5-second animation, watch the stupid elevator dance, press E again, wait for your teammate again, watch another animation, then kill Nazis, and then back to the elevator to leave the mission, over and over again.
I'm done with opening these elevator doors. I went to take a drink of my juice, and I had to set it down to go open a door.
And that's not to mention the countless other times this game has you completing the signature co-op mechanic, pressing 2 buttons at the same time. Which leads into my last point, and I guess kind of a discussion about the gameplay, but whatever, it's a good transition, so I'm going to talk about it now. This game didn't need to be co-op. There is nothing that requires a partner other than opening doors or hitting 2 switches, and it's a damn shame because it feels like there should be something really cool that could happen. Things like one person holding off enemies while the other has to do some parkour to reach a lever, each person taking turns going through some sort of death gauntlet maze thing, or just any sort of puzzle elements really. But instead, we just get this very simplistic, each person touches a button or each person has to help open the door. Hooray. The only thing that comes close to being worthwhile is this little pet mechanic where you can give yourself and your teammate a health or armor buff by giving them a thumbs up. It's kind of funny and it's a neat little feature, but that's really it. Overall, aggressively mediocre story that just has you killing Nazis, the end. Weak characters, and it does nothing with the co-op or open world in any truly meaningful way. Now, the core mechanics of Youngblood are fantastic. Shooting feels great as expected, movement is fast and fluid, and the double jump is a terrific new addition that makes traversing the world really fun. But, as I mentioned in the beginning of this review, Youngblood has added more RPG elements, and the main one is that enemies have bigger health bars and certain weapons do more or less damage depending on what type of enemy you're fighting. This is a big change for the series, and I was interested to see how it would play out. But unfortunately it is one of the dumbest implementations I could have possibly imagined. First and foremost, a lot of these enemies just feel like bullet sponges now, sometimes taking multiple clips to kill. It's just not good or fun, and I have no idea how anyone can play this and say, yeah, this is a worthwhile change over the fantastic combat from the last two games. But when you level up a bit and upgrade your weapons featuring the new and improved upgrade system, you start to feel more powerful. Enemies die quicker, and soon enough you can kill most enemies in 1, 2, or 3 shots. Except, that is only partially true, because while I was slaying, my friend Pete felt like he was firing blanks. This was incredibly confusing because here I was thinking the game was just horribly balanced, but he was still complaining that it was a bullet sponge mess. So we checked our weapons and we found that mine did 8% more damage due to a mastery buff, but 8% was not equaling up to the difference in damage output. So we did some tests and we determined that there is some sort of horrible issue where the host is playing the game normally, but the guest basically gets superpower mode. Pete was the host and I was the guest. I was destroying everything, and Pete would have been better off just sitting it all out.
All the way over there, that guy. He takes me 3 headshots to kill him.
Okay, ready? Watch me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot him in the body.
What the fuck? Dude, no, this game is broken. That is not 8% more damage.
Hold on.
We figured this must be a one-time thing, a rare bug. So we restarted, this time with me being the host and Pete joining my game. But sure as shit, now Pete got superpowers and I had to go back to doing no damage. And we've been able to repeat those exact same results every single time. Whoever is the host plays normal, whoever is the guest plays like God tier, proving that it wasn't a one-time thing, which leads me to believe that other people have likely had this issue and maybe just not even noticed, and this was also something that should have been caught in playtesting. We were both playing on very hard, yet we were getting 2 completely different experiences, and changing the difficulty did nothing either, as it played the same for the guest regardless of what it was set to. Like, this is not some small issue, this is game breaking. It takes out a lot of your drive to continue when you know your teammate can basically destroy everything much faster than you. As an example of just how broken it is, this is Pete with the superpowers. He was able to kill this boss by himself in about 5 seconds.
That was a good boss.
Girls, now get the keys from the tower commanders.
Are you serious? Did you actually just beat that?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Killing it, sis.
You're joking.
I was like a clip and a half, yeah.
Dude, this was actually like gonna be really cool. We were gonna have to hide on these like platforms above and not.
I know.
This entire system of RPG enemies just shouldn't have been implemented because it adds nothing, makes it just less fun, and breaks the game in the process. I can't stress enough that this just feels like worse Wolfenstein, and I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. And then of course there is the issue with balancing. Despite having superpower mode, certain enemies will still be able to one-shot you, even at full health. And the game will randomly give you these basic ass side missions, but the system for dealing out the side missions doesn't work, and sometimes you'll get one that takes you through a higher level area, which always leads to this happening.
Oh, he just one-shotted me. And I can't get down.
Whoa, whoa!
Oh,
What did I get?
oh
hit
yeah,
by?
we're not supposed to be here, I don't think.
And stealth goes out the window when you know you can just freely charge into enemies because you have ultra damage, and even if the damage is working properly, the whole cloaking device felt kinda useless because you were better off just rattling off a couple silenced assault rifle rounds into the enemies instead of actually taking the time to sneak around. Like, just shoot them enough times and they'll usually die before someone notices #stealth. Now, I don't want to point fingers, but to me the addition of the RPG system feels like an attempt to pad out the length of the game. Because even when it works as they intended, it just slows everything down. Just make a 3 to 4 hour game that is constantly engaging, instead of a 7-hour game that drags its feet the whole time. But it doesn't end there, because there are so many other issues. Things like the fact that enemies respawn too much, sometimes right in your face.
Okay, Okay, he literally spawned on me.
The fact that these suicide dogs exist and they can kill you in one hit, but they will spawn randomly and they don't make a sound. Now, that is already bad enough, but it's even worse when they also decided to add the dogs to an area that's pitch black, so you just die over and over and over again.
I just heard.
Where?
What? Wait, what? Here, I'm bleeding out.
I'm up. and
That
ready to
dude
go.
just like fucking. Oh my god, another dog.
Dude, the fucking Alright, suicide enemies in games are never fun.
They just killed me again.
They're silent too. Where? Dude, it's silent! What the fuck?
Wait, dude, we both went down again, right?
Yeah.
I'm suiciding.
Suicide enemies in games are almost always a terrible experience, but it's worse when I can't even hear a damn thing. Although, looking back, when I became the host and Pete became the guest, I finally heard a dog bark. So maybe it's all tied to that as well. I don't know, but even still, it was literally bark, and then I was dead. So even when I heard the sound, it still didn't really give me enough time to react. And if all that wasn't already a turnoff, this game has microtransactions. But what's weird is that on PC, they're absolutely worthless. They're only really used to buy skins, and there's only like 8 different skins, and all of the skins suck. So why bother? That is until you check out the PS4 version where you can go and buy yourself a nice XP booster to gain some XP faster. But if you notice, you can also buy those XP boosters for very cheap with coins, and there's an abundance of coins in the game, so again, why? The game is short as shit as is, so why would you want to speed up your progress? You know, that makes me think that maybe the addition of RPG mechanics were added to artificially slow down the game, so that there would be a reason to add microtransaction boosters. Kinda like in Far Cry New Dawn. Interesting. This game took some of the best shooter mechanics, added a great double jump, but then piled on hordes and hordes and hordes of terrible design choices and worthless systems and broken systems that result in a really awful feeling experience. It's a damn shame. So this is a good looking game, that's for sure. I mean, I can't deny that. The world is decently designed from a visual standpoint and the texture work is solid. That being said, the game is a pretty bare bones attempt at a 1980s setting. Other than the music, these VHS collectibles, and like 2 moments during the game, nothing about it really looks like it belongs in the 80s, which is unfortunate because they should have taken advantage of this time period and gone all out. I don't care if it might not have been realistic, it's a world where Nazis have taken over. Just go full Blood Dragon if you have to. Just make it interesting. Instead, now you only know it takes place in the 1980s because the game tells you that it takes place in the 1980s. I will say though, the new synthwave-inspired soundtrack is pretty great, and I wish the actual game did a better job fitting this retro future-inspired sound. They also missed out on a chance to utilize Nvidia's RTX technology. But wait a second, hold up. I saw in all the marketing that this game would be enhanced with ray tracing. Hell, when I bought my RTX 2080 graphics card a few months ago, they included this game for free as a part of the special ray tracing bundle. And yet when the game launched, there was no RTX support. Come on, you literally advertised it with ray tracing, you sold it with ray tracing, and you can't actually implement it when the game releases. Can y'all get anything right? Okay, actually, yes, they did get something right. That would be the performance. This game runs perfectly. I was able to have all settings on Ultra and almost got a locked 144 FPS, which made the experience feel super smooth. But overall, the performance feels like a hollow victory when the game doesn't take advantage of the setting and doesn't support ray tracing. The music is really good though. This game is incredibly disappointing, even more so than Rage 2. I just don't understand how anyone involved with this game gave it the okay. Like, it is actually just a really, really shitty version of the previous 2 games in every way possible. And it's not even close. It's not even like, oh, you know, the story is not as good as the other one, but the gameplay's still good. No, they couldn't even achieve that. They had to go and completely rework the already amazing combat and turn it into an absolute mess that has no idea what it wants to be. This is a stain on the franchise and Machine Games, and I really hope Wolfenstein 3 can knock it out of the park because this ain't it. I wouldn't even recommend this game on a sale. Just go play the other 2 games or play Old Blood, the DLC for the first game. You know, the short but good DLC that is exactly what Youngblood should have been. This is bad. This is just a bad video game. I considered giving it a 5, but it doesn't even really deserve that. The characters suck, the story is non-existent, the gameplay is an absolute mess of horrible ideas, and this game is just shit.